Hi, this is Joanne Murset, Creative Memories Advisor, with some tips to simplify creating cascading pages using Creative Memories 6 by 12 Peekaboo Pockets. A single 6 by 12 Peekaboo Pocket can be very handy when you have just about a page worth of extra items that you want to fit on a page. But sometimes you have a lot more that you want to fit into your album without taking up a lot of pages. Huge thanks to Creative Memories Advisor Lanita Medina for sharing her technique for creating cascading pages like this, and in particular for her recommended spacing of 1 3/16 of an inch between each peekaboo pocket. I do want to point out that when you are using 6 peekaboo pockets on a page, your last pocket will be starting at the 6-inch mark. Now, when I made this, I found that repeatedly measuring that 1 3/16 of an inch for the spacing was a bit challenging. So I developed some shortcuts that I'd like to share with you today. My first tip is to take a scrap of cardstock, like this 3 by 12 scrap, and to cut it down to 1 3/16 of an inch to use it as a spacing strip. If you have the Creative Memories 12-inch trimmer, this will be easy to do because the trimmer does have marks of 16ths of an inch. 3/16 is halfway between 1/8 and 1/4. And 16ths of an inch are also shown on the Creative Memories zero centering ruler. So to cut this strip, I am going to line it up at the top. I'm going to find 1 inch, and then I'm simply going to slide my piece of scrap cardstock over 3 of those tiny little lines. 1, 2, 3. I want this to be very exact, so I'm also going to check my measurement at the bottom and look, 1, 2, 3. I'll be lining this up on one of the shorter lines. And it just so happens that these lines fall pretty much on top of the 3-centimeter mark, if that's helpful for you to find it. So I'm just going to make a straight cut. And now I have my strip that is 1 3/16 of an inch wide. This extra piece, I'm just going to put over to the side. I'm actually going to use that a little bit later. So now that I have this 1 3/16 strip, and by the way, if you'd like, you could label this, but you don't really need to. So I have this prior one labeled 1 3/16 Peekaboo Pocket spacing strip for 6 Peekaboo Pockets. Our next step is to use this spacing strip to create a reusable template for placing our Peekaboo Pockets. So what I'm going to do now is to grab a piece of cardstock. I want a color that is light enough that I can print some notes on it later. But I am intentionally not choosing white because I often use Creative Memories Power Layout Guides, which are white. And of course, also I tend to have white refill pages laying around on my table. So I don't want this to get lost on my work surface. So I just happen to pick pumpkin, which is one of Creative Memories' current cardstock colors. And I'm simply going to use a pencil, and I'm also going to use my Creative Memories zero centering ruler, although I'm not using the zero centering feature right now. And I'm going to make my first line at the 6-inch mark. Remember, I showed you how the last Peekaboo Pocket starts at 6 inches. So simply making a straight line down my cardstock. And now I'm going to go back over towards the left-hand side. The first peekaboo pocket will go right along this edge. Um, I don't need to go over that in pencil. I'll just remember that. But I'm going to use my spacing strip now. And I'm going to place this right along the edge of my cardstock. And I'm going to draw a line along its right edge, straight down my cardstock. And now I'm going to lift this up and slide it over, and I'm going to put the left edge of it right on top of that line, actually covering up the line. And I'm going to draw along the right edge. Turns out 1 3/16 of an inch might be a smidge too wide, but it is, our best approximation. And as in scrapbooking in general, I feel like done is better than perfect. So we're not going to agonize over measurements smaller than 16ths of an inch. So you may have seen I also just drew my third line. And what I'm doing is I'm just working my way till I meet that 6-inch mark. And as I go to draw this line, I can see that this looks pretty centered in between here. There you go. You now have a Peekaboo Pocket placement template for using 6 Peekaboo Pockets on a page. Now, I just drew these lines vertically, as if for a vertical placement of the Peekaboo Pockets, like you saw in my example. I'll pull that out again, like so. But this could easily be used for horizontal placement just by turning it 90 degrees. I do think it is very helpful to label this, and I'm not going to take the time to label this new one, but I will show you how I have labeled one that I previously made. In the corner, so what would be the upper left-hand corner based on the way we just drew those lines, I have put a note, place first Peekaboo Pocket, and I have an arrow going up and an arrow going to the left. And at the top, I have the note top for 6 vertical Peekaboo Pockets. And then when I turn it to show the horizontal lines at the top, my note to myself is top for 6 horizontal Peekaboo Pockets. And you'll see how I use that in a moment. Now, this template, let me put it back here for you to look at. This template can be used with either traditional 12 by 12 refill pages with protectors or on a single pocket page, also known as a top-loading sleeve. In either case, the Peekaboo Pockets will not be adhered to this piece of cardstock. This is something that is reusable. And of course, in most cases, something bright orange like this wouldn't even work with your photos. But we will, as I mentioned, you would either place the Peekaboo Pockets on top of the page protector on top of a 12 by 12 refill page, or on top of the polypropylene or plastic of a 12 by 12 top loading page. And in my demonstration, I'm going to be putting the Peekaboo Pockets on what would in your album be a right-hand page, but you can just as easily put them on what would be the left-hand page. So how do we do this? Our first step is to slide the template or Yeah, the placement template into the sleeve. And here I still have the white cardstock that comes in the sleeve in here, and that's fine. You can also take that out. Either way is fine. Next, I'm going to get out my Peekaboo Pockets, and I'm going to be using all 6 pockets that came in this pack. And you'll notice that just as this cardstock was placed on, when we drew the lines, we want to have the lines to the left if we are using this vertically. If we're doing this horizontally, you would have, put this in, you would have slid this in this way, and the lines would be at the top. But either way, we would want to make sure that at the top, we do have that note that says top. So I'm just going to make sure that this template is in here nice and straight. And you will notice that with the top loading pages, that the single pocket pages, you will see about 1/4 of an inch of the plastic showing between this white reinforced edge, the jeeping, and your placement template. All right, now remember that leftover piece we had when we cut our spacing template? What I'm going to do now is put some tape runner on here. And we're going to start working with our Peekaboo Pockets. Sometimes it can be challenging to find where the adhesive is. I am right-handed. What I like to do is place my left hand into the opening and have the longer piece, the flap on the top, and use my right hand to peel off the plastic strip that's covering the adhesive. Now, one of the trickiest things about this is getting this plastic off of your hand. It seems to have static electricity. So I am now placing that on to the tape runner on my scrap. And now I'm folding this adhesive part back. And as I touch this, the adhesive is on the bottom. And what I'm going to do first is to place this edge right along that left edge of the cardstock. So just like it says in my little note to myself, placed first Peekaboo pocket and with the arrow, that's where I'm going to place this. And you will notice that the plastic of the Peekaboo pocket lines up perfectly with the edge of your page. And look at that. We have our first one done. Now, if you have placed yours down and you feel like it's not straight, or maybe it's a little bit too far up or too far down, it is very easy to just peel this right back up and reposition it. And as we go along, I may very well need to do that myself. So once you have your first Peekaboo pocket down, you flip that into the open position and you repeat that same process with your next Peekaboo pocket, peeling off this plastic. And I did hear in a video by, I believe it was Maureen Smith of Creative Memories Home Office, that they are going to be changing these pieces to be white, so it will be easier to see and to peel off. I'm going to peel this adhesive so that it's on the bottom. And now, you guessed it, we're going to line this up with our first pencil line. And I can tell I put that a little too far down. I need to reposition it up a little bit. And now I've got my second one done. I'm going to flip that over. Now, do the third. Again, this little piece of cardstock scrap with that tape runner is helping me get those pieces off of my fingers. There goes my third. Here comes the fourth. Again, I'm putting my hand inside the Peekaboo pocket. I've got the longer side with the flap on the top, peeling the strip off of the adhesive. Trying to get it off my fingers by putting it on that scrap of cardstock. Folding the adhesive under. Lining up the bottom of the Peekaboo pocket with the bottom of my top loading page, following the pencil mark. Opening that up. Just two more to go. So you can see this is actually a pretty quick process because we don't have to keep measuring that 1 3/16 of an inch each time. We only had to measure that once when we cut our strip. It was very quick to trace the edge of the strip onto the cardstock. And this cardstock you can reuse over and over, whether for vertical pages, horizontal pages, left side pages, right side pages, top loading, single pocket pages, or traditional refill pages. And here's my last Peekaboo pocket. This will be starting at 6 inches. And now I can flip everything over and I can take a look and see if I'm happy with this. And you know what? I'm noticing one of my Peekaboo pockets seems to just be jutting down a little too far at the bottom. So I'm going to reposition that because I know it is so easy to do, to reposition. You can take a look at yours if you're following along and do the same. Sometimes when I've made these, I felt like there was kind of like a bubble of maybe like an air bubble in these, and I've repositioned for that reason. Well, I am completely happy with this. My Peekaboo pocket page is done. Now what I'm going to do is slide out this template because this is reusable. And I'm definitely going to want to reuse this. I have a couple of ideas about where you could store something like this. You could store this in a 12 by 12 fill and file sleeve in a sort and stash binder. You could store it in a power layout box. Or if you have another place where you store templates, you could store it with that. So next I want to show you, well, actually, let me mention one thing about finishing this. Let me flip 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I want to point out that after you've flipped open all of your Peekaboo pockets, similar, to what I have in this sample where I used the Noteworthy product collection for some museum pictures. Oh, I also used a 4 by 6 Peekaboo pocket in here. When you flip all of those, what you will see here is, oh wait, that's my last Peekaboo pocket. Pardon me. What you will see here is the right half of the designer paper that I used as my base. So you will have the opportunity when you use the top loading single pocket pages to continue with more photos, journaling, memorabilia, etc. on the sheet, whether it's designer paper or cardstock that you slide inside. And similarly on the back. So you can see here, I haven't even finished my back page. And that's very easy for me to slide this in and out and to do that after I've done the Peekaboo Pockets. Or you could do that first, whichever you prefer. Now, I find working with the top loading single pocket pages to be a little bit easier with this technique because of that flexibility with the being able to slide that base page in and out. When you are working with a 12 by 12 traditional refill page, there's no way to put your protector on top of the Peekaboo Pockets. You would either have to have already made your base page or half of your base page that will show, and also the reverse side prior to adhering the Peekaboo Pockets, or you would need to slide your completed pages in, which is definitely doable. Because how do we do this Peekaboo Pocket technique with the 12 by 12 refill page? I'm not going to go through every step, but let me show you the most important ones. As I mentioned, you would have your page protector on. You simply slide your template in, center it as best you can. And then when you adhere the Peekaboo Pockets, you would start right along the edge of the page protector. So right along the edge of the page protector and continue going across. Or if you're using this horizontally, start at the top and continue going down. And then when you're finished, you simply slide this out. If you have already decorated your page, it's best for the page to not include bulky items that this would get stuck on. If you have not already decorated your reverse page and the half that will show, I recommend you slide in a whole sheet. You just put your photos on the half that will show. But if you have already decorated, then you would need to slide this, on top of those items. Otherwise, start with a blank page like I have here. And then after you've adhered your Peekaboo Pockets, build your page, your photos, your memorabilia, your journaling boxes, etc., onto either a piece of cardstock or a piece of designer paper, and then slide it in. And similar to how you slide in this template. And what you will find is that the combination of the page protector being closed at the top and the bottom, and the jeeping or reinforced edges on the two sides will keep your page secure. For extra measure, if you want, you can certainly sneak a little bit of tape runner into the sides, or you could use the little tabs that are like photo splits. Pardon me for forgetting the exact name. Okay, so I'm not going to take the time to adhere all the Peekaboo Pockets on the refill page. I think you probably get the idea for that. Now, I do want to give you a tip for how you decide what you're going to put in the Peekaboo Pockets, and if this is something that you want to use for the particular album you are working on. I find that especially with travel photos of museums, of historic houses and the like, that I have a lot of photos that I want to include, but I don't feel like they necessarily need to be spotlighted on their own page. And so what I am now doing, and when I think of this technique, is I am doing my own version of mini power layouts. So this is a case where I decided that I wanted to do horizontal peekaboo pockets. And typically, if you have a lot of vertical photos, more may fit if you're using a horizontal layout. If you have more horizontal photos, they may fit better um, with a with the with hard yeah, vertical photos fit better, or you fit more of them on horizontal peekaboo pockets, and vertical pictures, horizontal pictures fit better on vertical peekaboo pockets. Wow, that was not easier said than done. It was much easier done than said. So what I have done is I've just taken some of that white cardstock that comes inside the top loading pages and I've cut them in half. So I've got 13 6 by 12 white pieces and I have labeled them with Post-it notes, Peekaboo 1 front. So this would be in my first Peekaboo pocket, Peekaboo 1 back. When I flip, this would be in the back. And I am not planning to tape these photos just onto the white cardstock. I may, but my intention is to reuse these 6 by 12 white cardstock segments. But this helps me to plan out how many photos I want to put on a side, how many sides I might need. And what I found for this particular project is this historic home that I did not have enough photos to fill all 6 peekaboo pockets. Oh, and I mentioned that I have 13 of these. Why 13? 6 peekaboo pockets times 2 sides gives you 12. And then remember, you always have that half of your base page still showing. So that gives you 13. So what I have done is I have come up with spacing for when you only want to use 4 or 5 peekaboo pockets on a page. And I will now lead you in making templates for those. Again, I'm using a light colored cardstock so that I can write notes on it, but I'm not picking white because I don't want it to get lost on my page. So this is purple ice. And what I can tell you is in a case where you want to use 5 peekaboo pockets, and you may determine that by using that little power layout method I just showed you with the 6 by 12 papers. For 5 peekaboo pockets, the spacing should be 1 1/2 inch between peekaboo pockets. And there's no need to make a spacing strip because the math works out nice and you would be drawing your lines at 1 1/2 inches, 3 inches, 4 1/2 inches, and 6 inches. So here we go. I have my cardstock centered on my Creative Memories 13 by 13 mat. My first peekaboo pocket would go right along that left edge. I'm drawing my first line at 1 1/2 inches, which is 11 and a half on the top. And my next line will be at 3 inches on the bottom. That's 9 inches at the top. Next, 4 1/2 inches. That's on the bottom. At the top, you're at 7 1/2 inches. And then our last line is at the 6-inch mark. Now, how easy was that? Once again, I recommend that you label this paper now that you have 2 templates. In this upper left corner, place first peekaboo pocket with your 2 arrows, one going up, one going to the side. And also along that same top where you have your lines going vertically, top for 5 vertical peekaboo pockets. And then on the side, when you turn it, top for 5 horizontal peekaboo pockets. And it's also very easy to make a template if you're just using 4 peekaboo pockets. For 4 peekaboo pockets, our spacing is 2 inches. So we are simply drawing lines at 2, 4, and 6 inches. I need to center my cardstock nicely. This time I've chosen Kelly Green. So my first line is at 2 inches, which is 10 inches on the top. My next line is at 4 inches. So that's 4 inches on the bottom, 8 at the top. And my last line is at 6 inches. And again, you can label that. Upper left-hand corner, place first peekaboo pocket here with your 2 arrows. Top for 4 vertical peekaboo pockets. And when you turn to the side, top for 4 horizontal peekaboo pockets. Here is an example where I have not yet put in my photos, but this is an example with 5 peekaboo pockets on a Creative Memories refill page. I went with a rainbow look for my backgrounds here. I'm using red, pumpkin, canary, Kelly green, and blue cardstock. And right now we're just seeing the white refill page. I would likely you put in another, have a different color background, maybe eggplant. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 peekaboo pockets. And this is an example where our pockets are horizontal, works well for vertical photos. If you're using 4x6 photos, you might need to do a little bit of trimming. And this would be a left-hand page. Well, I hope you found these tips helpful. Again, my name is Joanne Murset. I'm a Creative Memories advisor that lives in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, but I have spent many years living in central New Jersey and also host events there. If you're currently not working with a Creative Memories advisor, I'd appreciate it if you'd order from my website. All my information is in the video description. And if you're looking to join an advisor team, I'd be happy to support you in that as well. Happy scrapping.